Hey everyone, and welcome to the recap of day 2 of the mega motion hearing in the Karen Reed case. And what a day! I had to start day drinking to get through it because it started bad, it went worse, and it ended horribly. Not for Karen Reed, but Special Prosector Hank Breenan seems like he pulled out every single dirty trick that he could find in his book. He was constantly belittling the defense team. He made tons of misstatements again about facts in the case. Even Auntie Bev, Miss Beverage herself, had to go in and try and quiet it down. As always, her heavily biased against the defense team made her start to attack them. But it was Special Prosector Breenan who constantly antagonized the defense team. And it started right from the start of the day because Aidan Carney had shared that apparently I'm sitting next to Karen Reed tomorrow in court. We opened up, Aidan was alone in the courtroom, and then this happened.
Videos, things that have absolutely nothing to do with communications between Mr. Carney and the defendant. So how can the Commonwealth make the threshold showing that those are relevant?
First, this is a ruling with Mr. Carney, so I'm asking that Mr. Carney and his attorney be at the table. I'm not sure why we're being joined by Ms. Reed's team, unless they have standing in this.
So he called Aidan Carney to turn over evidence against Miss Reed under the docket number that has Miss Reed's case on it, and he didn't call Miss Reed's team. The judge wasn't Beverage. This judge slapped him down and said, of course they are allowed to talk because this regards their client. He did make a ruling that all the communications has to be turned over. And I read this part and I kind of laughed because any and all evidence of communications between the defendant and Mr. Carney concerning communications between Mr. Carney and any witness or family member of a witness involved in the Red Rum of John O'Keefe. So anyone who helped unalive John O'Keefe that Aidan Carney have communicated with. That's how I read it. I don't know if it's a typo, if it's a spelling mistake, but as I read this, the judge claims that Matthew McCabe, Jen McCabe, Brian Albert, Christopher Albert, Colin Albert, Juliana Albert, Michael Proctor, and Elizabeth Proctor is involved in the Red Rum of John O'Keefe, because that's what it says right here. Involved in the Red Rum of John O'Keefe. Probably not what he meant, but that's how I read it. Just a funny little note if anyone else didn't catch that, but it aligns with things that happened later. We started getting into the motions, and as I said, the level of pettiness, the level of underhanded attacks on the defense team, their credibility, their skill level, their intelligence, kept going from Special Prosector Breenan. Constantly, he was snarky. Constantly, he was trying to put in that they didn't know anything about anything. And I'm going to play a few clips so you can see why I titled this Gloves Are Off. Normally, AJ has been the only one who's kind of been fighting back, taking some swings. Yesterday, it was everyone on the defense team. Even Liza Little, who has been very quiet, very helpful to Judge Beverage. She even started taking some swings back. And I understand why, because we're 2 weeks out of jury selection. Hank Breenan, special prosector, keeps lying, keeps claiming they don't live up to anything, while he keeps dumping evidence on him. And this asshat, sorry, now put AJ, Miss Little, and Yannetti on the state's witness list. Why do you do this? I really hope the taxpayers of Massachusetts are happy, but let's see how the tone was at certain points.
No, could you answer that now, and then I'll let you say everything.
To, Your Honor.
Oh, you just said it's late. Hold on. You just said it's later in the argument.
I know, but I said you interrupted me, and I was just about to say, but I'll asking.
So no, could you answer that now, and then I'll let you say everything.
To, Your Honor.
Oh, you just said it's late. Hold on. You just said it's later in the argument.
I know, but I said you interrupted me, and I was just about to say, but I'll ask.
Sorry. It's cut a little funny, but that's Yannetti openly attacking Bev for her consistent interrupting of the defense team. We also had a hearing about allowing a witness in, a former FBI agent, highly credited, not as high as Caffey Daffy, the ports pirate, but almost, who is an expert in investigations. And Breenan started crying and said, well, they can't bring anyone in to testify about how the investigation was run. What should I do? Call someone and says it was perfect? This is AJ's response to that one.
Objecting if they called somebody in rebuttal to reinforce a great investigation?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Mr. Brennan said, what if I called a Massachusetts state police officer to say that this was the best investigation ever? I have 2 words. Do it.
Do it. Like the Emperor in Star Wars, do it. Of course they want Special Prosector Breenan to call an MSP whatever to say this is the most perfect investigations ever, because on cross-examination AJ will then say, so it's standard procedure to use solo cups, it's standard procedure to use Jiffy Lube bags, it's standard procedures not to have any evidence log whatsoever, it's standard procedure to write reports 3 years after the incident. It's standard procedure to go through phones without search warrants. It's standard procedure you don't cordon off the crime scene. It's standard procedure you have 3 people that the search team doesn't know who arrived at the scene, started walking around on the scene. You just thought they might have been cops. It's standard procedure not taking any still photos of evidence when you pick up her car at her parents' house. It's standard procedure that all the photos makes it impossible to determine what happened at the scene. Do it. Do it again. We want to fight. We also have another person I have seen as maybe the guy who was brought on to keep it a little down, because Yannetti and AJ have history with Beverage. She doesn't like them. It's clear as day. So Alessi have been that voice of reason. Even he lost it yesterday.
The methodology is documented. I do not understand how an attorney can get up and say a report doesn't have something without having a basis for saying it.
This is Alessi talking about all the lies that Special Prosector Breenan fills the courtroom with, because he's the man who constantly makes these statements that, well, the defense team doesn't know anything. The defense team doesn't know their behind from a summer hat, as we say in Denmark. And even Alessi had to say, how can he make these misstatements What did Beverage do? She said, I told you to stop with the attacks. Remember Monday or Tuesday, when it was Tuesday, I believe it was, where you tore into the defense for making misstatements in your courtroom, and the only thing we have to rely on is the trustfulness of a lawyer. He lied to you all day yesterday. You didn't start shaking. You didn't go to your room, pounded some beverages. You just went on with it. Why the double standard? The defense, you wanted Ms. Reed to remove her own counsel, but you allow Special Prosector Breenan to lie to your open face constantly. He's never prepared. He never knows anything that happened in the first trial. He directly misstates what the defense is saying. Every time there's a motion, he goes up there and say, well, defense clearly talked about B, even though the defense only talked about A. And you don't do anything to try and get him in line. If you didn't have double standards, you wouldn't have any standards at all, Beverage.
Sure.
If anything Mr. Breenan just said was true, he might have an argument. My goodness. It's important to get some of the facts right. You got to get some of them right.
I couldn't agree with you more. Watching yesterday was probably some of the worst court proceedings I've ever seen. I've been doing this for 2.5 years. Before that, I was probably watching true crime, whatever, LawTube, whatever you call what we do, for a couple of years as well. I've been doing my layman duty for 14 years in Denmark now. I have never seen anyone as slimy as Special Prosector Breenan. I have never, ever seen anyone directly lie about what has just been said in court like he did yesterday. I have never seen a judge hold his hand as much as we saw yesterday. I understand why the gloves came off yesterday, because he's constantly trying to do whatever he can to misrepresent the defense. But on a silver lining, we also got something I didn't expect.
Third-party culprits that we have identified are Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and Colin Albert. I have, evidence with regard to each. So the potential.
We got 3 names of the possible third-party culprit suspects. Brian Albert, homeowner of 34 Fairview. Brian Higgins, his buddy he'd been drinking with all day. If you go watch the video from the waterfall, also a guy who seemed very agitated at the on the night. The guy who also had, and to be fair, yes, Karen Reed was in some text flirting with him. Can't deny that. But she ghosted him the last couple of weeks leading into this. He's the guy who texted her, what? Well, something like that, at the waterfall bar. He's the guy pointing to John O'Keefe, seeming very agitated in the waterfall bar. Colin is Brian Albert's nephew, a guy they really didn't want to have anyone testify he was at 34 Fairview that night. He's a guy that John O'Keefe had problems with. Remember the calling him Mr. Neppernacker or whatever that cartoon thing is that they claim, well, it's just a joke we had. Those 3 were now named in open court yesterday. I don't speculate about who could have done it. I have never done it, because I have always said this case is about, is Karen Reed guilty or not? And I am of the firm belief Karen Reed is not guilty. I did say after Brian Higgins' testimony that if I was to point at a third-party culprit, I would point at him, because he had the motive jealousy, which could be a strong motive. He had the opportunity. John O'Keefe was at 34 Fairview. He had the means. If they were in the basement at the gym rack, there's a lot of sharp implements you can fall on down there. I don't say he did it. I have no evidence. I have no evidence Brian Albert did it. I have no evidence that Colin did it. I'm just saying, if I was to investigate a third-party culprit defense suspect, I would have looked at Brian Higgins because of his very, very, very untruthful story he told about what he did on the night, his disposal of his phone, and the prior relationship with Karen Reed, which they want to use the prior relationship against Karen Reed, saying, this is why you did it. The natural thing would be to look at Brian Higgins in the same light. But they named them. They were called to sidebar. I don't do the body language because I think it's bunk when people will tell all of you that, well, I can tell you what the defendant feels. You can't, because body language needs a very strong baseline. But I would still say, go back and watch when they return from that sidebar. Something changed at that sidebar. What evidence the defense gave Beverage, I don't know. We won't know till trial, if ever. But something changed at that sidebar. They went back to a sidebar and the day ended. We're back Tuesday. But, oh my God, punching Bev, punching Breenan, the defense team is filled up to the breaking point at this time. Every one of them came out swinging, as they should be, because Brennan is probably the slimiest lawyer I have seen, and I watched Zach Anderson getting railroaded in court.